All right, so we got some Dragon Ball Super News slash Toyotaro information. Because if you didn't know, they got V Jump going on, the V Jump Carnival going on, and the people everywhere are getting information. Okay, it's a lot happening. So different animes and shit. It's been a lot going on. So Dragon Ball, we got a new illustration. First of all, I'm not here to critique his art, okay, which it looks really good. I mean, the only people that are gonna really critique his art are people who love Toriyama's art style for specific reasons, okay? People who understand art. And I'm not saying that everybody has to understand art to enjoy it. That is not what I'm saying. But if you're gonna pretend like it's not a thing, then you'll just remain ignorant to why some people dislike certain things about Toyotaro, okay? Especially given the fact that these are Dragon Ball characters and they had a certain look about them for a long time. And if they're not drawn in that certain look, then they don't look like them anymore, for a lot of reasons. So I'm not here to critique his art, but yeah, his anatomy is always all over the place. I'm just going to say that. I know a lot of people have problems with his shoulders, a lot of problems with that. There's a lot of problems with that, okay? I know people have problems. I'm not here to do that, like I said. But I did see a post that somebody made and making fun of his shoulder. That's why I mentioned that. And I thought it was kind of funny. He said, bye, Toyotaro. Then we got an idiot in the comments saying, at least it's going to end now that Super is officially ended. I think he's just saying that to get people to interact with him. I don't know. I think that's what certain people do. But our guy Luis over here, the Frenchman, by the way, he's over there at the Jump Victory Carnival. And he ran into Victory Uchida, like he says right here in this post. And this is why a lot of people are getting desperate, crying about Dragon Ball. It's never changed. It's in the same state. If you think they're not gonna ever produce Dragon Ball again, you're crazy. That was a fear once at one point in time. But right now it's too much merchandise, too many active things with Dragon Ball and relatively recent things that have happened with it for them to just completely drop it. You've got to be crazy to think they're just dropping it. Even if we don't get an anime back and all we get is specials and one-shot shows like Daima and movies, that's what they're gonna do. Okay, that by all means they're not gonna let this die, especially since the man with the plan himself is not here anymore, and they were letting this gold mine sleep for so long. And this franchise go unloved for so long. They're not just gonna let it die. A lot of people think it's gonna die. It's been in an indefinite hiatus before any of this news came out. This news of Toyotaro making his own manga, which by the way, a lot of people thought that Toyotaro making his own manga, they thought those translations on the French websites were fake, or not fake, but more or less they typed in the wrong information. They just flat out told us the wrong thing. That's what they said. And a lot of Twitter channels reported that, that was the wrong information. Some people I've seen come back and also report on the other hand that, other channels need to be careful and not, bro, come on, bro. You're the same French channel who said, not this guy, but it was a different guy. It's like, yo, you're the same French channel who told us Toyotaro was making his own manga. And then you came out and said the information wasn't real. And then you came out and said, actually, it was real. So if we can't trust the man who's speaking the language over there, then that's how you know we need to just get the official information sometimes. You can't go off what people are saying in vague information. That's my point. You can't do that. You're going to be led astray unintentionally at some point in time, okay? It's going to happen. But let me continue on here. So, Toyotaro, okay, he also made a statement recently that is kind of crazy for him to say. In the sense, it's not crazy. Let me rephrase that. It's not crazy, but it's going to cause a lot of problems. It's going to cause a lot of trouble. So you can pause this and read the whole thing. I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but he basically said that he likes so much of Dragon Ball that he just thinks anything is canon if he likes it enough. He chooses in his mind what he thinks is canon. But he doesn't think it's up for him to decide ultimately as a writer or anything like that what's canon officially. He's not saying any of that, but he's just personally, I like this. I think this is canon. As you see down here, he's talking about Dragon Ball Online. I think this is canon. It's canon to him. I think that's dangerous to say because I understand partially why he's saying this, because Toyotaro is coming from that humble place. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, on one hand, he's not officially the big dog. On one hand, he's not 100% in control of Dragon Ball. But on the other hand, he did get handpicked by Toriyama, the man who makes his manga, and he had his other people in his, with their hand in his pot. Toriyama can't just cook alone. There's other people with their hand in his pot. But he's the one who chose Toyotaro to come and put his hand in the pot. He chose him to do it in his place. Like, you stand where I'm at right now, you stir what I'm stirring. And then, the other hands are still in the pot, but he has Toyotaro's hand on the spoon. Okay? So, Toyotaro needs to accept that he's holding the spoon now. He holds the pen. And, you got to still respect the positioning and all that, but I feel like partially he's speaking like a fan still. He still speaks like a fan. And like what he says, I think it's better for each fan to decide for themselves. Like, he's speaking like a fan. Like, he has to also, and I'm not saying everything he says now just because he's the writer with the pen. I'm not saying everything he says has to be gold, because he might end up saying some stupid shit. He's not the best writer. And he's not Toriyama at the end of the day. So, but my point being is, I think that Toyotaro should own up to that a little bit more. And ultimately, I think they're going to end up getting a lore master. They're going to get a lore master or one of the editors, somebody. They're going to edit all this shit and they're going to make a continuity, or they're going to, there are multiple continuities, but they're going to make all the continuities make sense, coexisting next to each other, more so than they do already. Because I think they kind of do already. Like, what's canon, people use that word really, really broadly. I think that what they're talking about here, they're not speaking of like between the manga and the anime and the small petty reasons that the fans online talk about. They're speaking in the broader spectrum, like Dragon Ball Heroes and the old movies. And he's talking about all that shit, Dragon Ball Online. Like, he's talking about Xenoverse, shit like that. Like, he's just speaking in a broad spectrum. I wonder where this question came from. All we have is his answer. I want to dig more into that, because I don't think his answer or the question is based on what we're over here in the West arguing about, between like Ken Goku and him using that versus using God and Blue, and which one's canon, which scene's canon, like, Ultra Instinct being through Spirit Bomb or this and that. Like, people are too hung up on small specifics. I don't even think they worry about that shit this much. As you can see, they don't. Yeah, Toyotaro, he needs to stop doing that. I kind of ranted there. He needs to stop doing that. He needs to accept the fact that he is the chosen one in that sense, and be a little bit more 10 toes down on things, man. Like, stop wavering so much. I feel like it's part of his problem with his pen game. Toriyama told him, I know that there was some other recent information, because a lot of interviews have been coming out over the week, but I heard Toyotaro was on stage with some of the editors and his superiors who work with Toriyama and whatnot, and they were speaking about Toyotaro's difference between his paneling and Toriyama Sensei's paneling, being that Toriyama is the sensei and Toyotaro has far to go before he's sensei level, right? And they were speaking of his paneling and shit, and they were telling him, this A, B, and C, look at how you're doing it compared to this one, which is all right. It's all right. But at the same time, Toriyama told him the same shit, like, bruh, you're the one doing this now. Just get free with it. Do what you feel like you got to do. And I feel like he still struggles with doing that. The thing that Toriyama was trying to tell him about, just being free with the shit. He still struggles with that ultimately, and a lot of other stuff. So yeah, I kind of ranted right there about him. But I mean, that's the end of the road for me. I feel like with this information coming out and the existence of him having a new manga, his new manga, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, I'm gonna tell you right now, his new manga is not Dragon Ball ending, okay? Because people think Dragon Ball is ending. I said it in another video before, the possible meaning of a new manga, because we didn't know for sure yet. But that means that this is basically him being able to flex and better his manga drawing skills in general. He's going to express more action and whatnot. And yeah, his manga could do bad in the beginning, so he might not even have a long enough run to flex and you know, practice these things. But that's going to be part of the big benefit of this outcome of him having to do his own manga and Dragon Ball being on hiatus, because they've got to cook up a story. They got to cook up a future, okay, based on whether or not they're doing movies or not, and where they're going to go with characters possibly. I don't know what exactly they got to think of. But then even outside of that, you got to remember there's a whole legal dispute going on. So even when the legal dispute comes back, they could just start rolling the series out. Okay, it could come back in a completely different way. Okay, we might not even know. What if by the end of this whole thing, Toyotaro's not even the man anymore in the seat? So far he is. Like, yeah, they got him on the screen in front of all of us, and he's talking and all that because Dragon Ball's on a hiatus, suspended animation. But if some crazy outcome happens, being whatever it is, whoever wins this legal thing wins it, or whoever steps down. If things change enough to the point where people can just say, yo, Toyotaro, you're done. We got somebody else who draws just like Sensei, and he don't got to write no story. We're just gonna tell him to draw, and we got the story. If they do some shit like that, they could. They very well could. Who knows what's gonna happen? They could just say, like what people are saying. People are saying this too early, that Dragon Ball is done. But it is never a complete possibility that it's just gonna stay here forever, because they could just in the future, because it's such a valuable thing, they could just say, oh, we don't know what the fuck to do with it. We're just gonna start doing animation projects, no more manga. We don't know what to do with it. Maybe the manga come back one day, but we're gonna end that shit for now. Dragon Ball Super's over, and it's gonna come back with a new name. They can do that. They can do that and just continue with animation projects and Daima and movies and shit like that. Dragon Ball can exist as an animated franchise now, solely because, you know, what a lot of people like to note nowadays, a lot of people don't give a fuck about manga that much anyway, right? So what's the difference? A lot of people don't care about this shit anyway. They'll watch an anime, think it's hot, go read the manga, it's trash now. What the fuck is going on? So hey, whether or not it comes back is still in the air. Don't act like it's just solidified. If for some reason it does, like I said, get canceled and doesn't come back, that does not mean you predicted that. Okay, it's suspended in the air. It can go either way. If the strongest possibility is it coming back after they've solved and resolved everything they're doing and every problem they have. Okay, that's the most probable outcome. So I'll leave that there, and that's the end of this video. It's a quick one.